Hey there my peeps, so every single year I like to post up a video talking about the possible returns and debuts that could take place in the upcoming Royal Rumble match. I'm a big fan of the Rumble, it's my favorite pay-per-view, so I like to talk about it, and one of the things I like the most about it is the surprises. Who's going to return this year, who's going to make a debut this year, and you just don't know who's going to come out next, and I think that's like one of the coolest things about the Rumble match. Now for those of you new to these videos, I like to keep things realistic, or somewhat realistic, so don't expect me to say Steve Austin, Danny O'Brien, Hulk Hogan, and I don't know, who's somebody under contract with TNA right now? Matt Hardy, alright? This isn't a wish list basically. But in the comment section, let's keep this fun. If you guys had the option to choose 3 wrestlers, any 3 wrestlers from any promotion that can make their return or debut in the Rumble match, who would they be? You don't need to be realistic at all with that question or with your answers. And if you guys like these Rumble videos and would like to see more about the 2017 Royal Rumble, because there's a lot to talk about in this year's Rumble, because in my opinion it's the most unpredictable one in a long time, click that like button and let's get this over 200 likes, and let's start this. And I'm gonna kick it off with the one person I think is most likely to make a debut at the Rumble this year, and it's not Ty Dillinger, it's Samoa Joe. So Joe has pretty much done what he can do in NXT. He's been at the top. He won the NXT Championship twice. That's more than anybody else except for Nakamura, because they both won it twice. But I don't see basically Samoa Joe afterwards going to the mid-card of NXT prior to moving up to the main roster. Usually, you make it to the top of NXT and then you move up to the main roster. So since he's already made it to the top of NXT, won the championship twice, dropped it to Nakamura, and then failed to regain it, the next logical step is for him to move up to the main roster, whether that be Raw or SmackDown, and the Rumble would be a great time to make his first appearance. And on top of that, he's turning 38 in March, so he's not getting any younger. AJ Styles, for instance, he's 39, he's already there on the main roster. And also, they could use him, man. They could use him, especially on SmackDown, you know, as another main event star, or maybe in the beginning, another, you know, talent that could challenge for, let's say, the Intercontinental Championship against Dean Ambrose or something like that. And with WrestleMania coming up, they could always use some more superstars for whatever program there may be. And there's tons of rumors about Samoa Joe getting to the main roster soon and getting a huge push. I think the Rumble's the perfect time to debut him. For the past couple of years, we've had NXT superstars make their first appearance on the main roster through the Rumble, or in Sami Zayn's case last year, make their re-debuts to the main roster, because Sami Zayn had first showed up on the main roster in the Open Challenge against John Cena, but then of course got injured and then was out for a couple of months. And then he re-debuted it in the Rumble last year. We also saw Rusev make his first appearance in the main roster in the Rumble match. Same with Bo Dallas. So I definitely think Samoa Joe is a real possibility for the 2017 Royal Rumble, and I'm looking forward to it. Next up is somebody who I think I've mentioned every single year in these Rumble return videos, because he isn't new to coming back in the Rumble match. He came back twice, or on 2 separate occasions, the first one being the 06 Rumble match, and the second one being 09. Now with that info, can you guys actually guess who that is? In case you can't, it's Rob Van Dam, and here's why. He left the WWE on good terms, and he was actually supposed to come back 2 years ago in 05 when the Wyatt family was having this feud with the ECW Originals. It was the Dudley Boys, Tommy Dreamer, and then they brought out Rhino to take on the Wyatt family 4-on-4 in an 8-man tag team match. Well, the Dudley Boys and Tommy Dreamer's partner wasn't supposed to be Rhino originally, it was going to be Rob Van Dam, but they couldn't come to an agreement with RVD, so they went with Rhino instead. According to Rob Van Dam, at that time he was very busy, it wasn't the best time for him, so that's why they went with Rhino. And in case you're wondering where I got that info, this is all from a recent Sports Illustrated interview with RVD, and in that same interview when asked about returning to the company, he said, "I have an open door with WWE as far as wrestling goes. I also have an ongoing merchandise relationship. I hope that the right opportunity presents itself so that I will do another run with WWE. For me, the fans missing me and wanting to see me on TV is very important, but the business end of it also has to be right." So it certainly seems like if the WWE has a good opportunity for RVD, that he's down to come back, and I'd like to see RVD come back and maybe try and reinvent himself like Jericho has done so many times in the past. And even if he doesn't, For the past 2 years now at WrestleMania, we've had a multi-man ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. And if they end up doing that once again, then hey, RVD's a perfect fit for that type of match, so after the Rumble, they could go ahead and set that up. Now, speaking of these multi-man ladder matches for the IC title that they've had 2 years in a row now, at Mania, the first time they had that match, the champion, the defending champion, was Wade Barrett, or Bad News Barrett, at the time. And that's the next guy on my list that I think could show up in this year's Rumble match. Barrett chose to not re-sign his contract and leave the WWE back in May. And in an interview recently with Sports Illustrated, because he also did one just like Rob Van Dam, he was asked the same things, about him leaving and possibly returning. And when it comes to leaving, pretty much, one of the big reasons why he left is because they took away all the influence he had in his characters. He says that he had a bunch of influence in his characters back in the Nexus days and the Bad News Barrett days, but then once he became King Barrett, that was all taken away. Here's what he said. One of the most exciting parts of the Nexus and Bad News Barrett eras where I had a lot of influence in the character and I had a lot of influence in how I was going to portray myself. When I became King Barrett, the influence I had in the character was taken away. I was told, this is your outfit and here's your promo that you have to say word for word. Anytime I tried to tweak the storyline because I thought it wasn't working or because it wasn't me, I was denied. The lack of control over my career reduced my passion more than anything. Now, I didn't like the King Barrett character. To me, it was the weakest character he had in the WWE, and obviously he felt the same. He didn't like it either. Now, the great thing is, with him leaving, is that once he comes back, he doesn't need to go back to King Barrett. He won't go back to King Barrett. The whole King gimmick, King Booker, King Sheamus, King Regal, it's only for a short period of time, and then they usually go back to whatever they were doing prior to that. Especially if you leave the company, he's not going to come back as King Barrett, obviously. And now I feel that WWE has more to offer him, more opportunities, especially now with the brand split. The rosters are split in half so they could use guys like Barrett, and he could benefit from the draft just like guys like Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin have. These guys weren't really getting too many opportunities prior to the draft, but then once they got on SmackDown and the rosters were split, we saw Dolph Ziggler get a WWE Championship match on pay-per-view, Baron Corbin recently getting a title match as well, so I think an offer for him to come back to the company would be more appealing now, and on top of that, in the same interview, he said that he's gotten offers from the wrestling world for 2017. So that could be the WWE and more specifically a Rumble appearance. Following that is what I think is the most likely return out of all of them in this year's Rumble match, and that's Finn Balor. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks he's going to return. I think that's like the most obvious one out there. Here's the thing, once he got injured, the WWE said that he was going to be out for 4 to 6 months. And what I find is they always exaggerate it. They always go ahead and give, like, let's say they'll say a superstar is going to be out for 6 months when he comes back in like 4 months. They did it with John Cena, I think they did it with Edge too. Basically, they've done it a bunch of times, so when that superstar returns, it's a surprise. Hey, even in interviews, Finn Balor said that he's aiming for a WrestleMania return and he doesn't think he's going to make it for the Rumble. To me, that's just him trying to make it a surprise when he does actually make his appearance and come back in the match. This year's Rumble, like I said, is one of the most unpredictable ones, simply because if you just look at the guys that are currently on the roster, that are currently active and not injured, you can't really pinpoint who's going to win it, and obviously there's some people that have a bigger chance at winning it over others that have been announced, but it's not really obvious. Or at least not as obvious as the past couple of Rumble matches, and also another reason for that is because you've got a lot of big stars this year in the 2017 one. But when you then factor in Finn and him being a participant in the match, the unpredictability gets reduced just a little bit, because that'd be a huge return, right? Because he was the Universal Champion prior to getting injured and then vacating the championship. He never lost it. And so, if he returns, that's a big return in the Rumble match, and usually, actually all the time, when there's a big return like that, that person actually wins the Rumble match. So, another reason why I think we could see Finn returning here is because I think he's one of the more likely winners of the match. And for anybody that's gonna say, oh, they wouldn't have Finn win the match, they wouldn't have Finn win a Rumble match and main event WrestleMania or challenge for the championship there, what makes you think that? His first night on Raw, he won a fatal 4-way match, and then beat Roman Reigns clean one-on-one, went on to SummerSlam, his first pay-per-view on the main roster, beat Seth Rollins to become the very first Universal Champion, the World Championship, the new World Championship of Raw. So they were pushing him big, and I don't see that changing once he returns. So that's why I think there's a very good chance we see Finn returning at the Rumble. And to close this out, I've got one more wrestler to add to this list. Now, in the beginning of the video, I said I like to keep things realistic, and I do. But I'll be honest, this one isn't as realistic as all the previous ones that I mentioned because of the recent announcements. And that person is Kurt Angle. I've always been a huge fan of Kurt Angle, loved him in the WWE, loved him in TNA. As soon as he was no longer in contract with TNA, I was like, yo, when are we going to see Kurt back in the company? I want to see him Angle Slam Rusev or something like that. I want to see him wrestle again in the WWE. I want to hear that theme song. How cool would it be if the Wyatt family's beating down on the American Alpha and then Kurt's music hits, he comes running down to the ring, Angle slams every single member of the Wyatt family. That'd be freaking cool to see, man. Out of all the possible returns, this is the one I want to see the most. And the reason why I say this isn't as realistic as the other ones that I mentioned is because recently he's been telling people apparently that he's going to return to the company in April. And on top of that, he's booked to face Cody Rhodes in a steel cage match at an indie show March 3rd. So that kind of lowers the chances of him making a Rumble appearance, but not completely. Because we've seen wrestlers in the past, after debuting in the WWE, finishing the dates they were booked for on the indies. For instance, AJ Styles. So while it could happen, it might not be as realistic as the other guys that I named in this video. So that's it for my list. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and with that said, I'm out guys, see ya.